Inside the bell tower of the Cathedral of Modena in northern Italy hangs an ordinary oak bucket. It is old, dark, and bound by rusted iron straps. To a tourist, it looks like trash. To medieval historians, it is a monument to one of the most brutal afternoons in 14th century Europe. Legend says two armies marched to war over this bucket. Legend says thousands of men bled into the mud because soldiers snuck across a border, stole a well bucket, and refused to give it back. The truth is far darker. The bucket didn't start the war. The bucket was the prize. On November 15th, 1325, over 39,000 soldiers met in the hills near the fortress of Zappolino. In less than 2 hours, 2,000 men were dead. It was a slaughter driven by holy hatred, political betrayal, and a feud that had burned for 200 years. And when the mud settled, the victors took the one thing that would humiliate their enemies forever. To understand why thousands of men marched toward a hill in 1325, you have to understand medieval Italy's dirty secret. The entire region was torn between two powerful factions, those who backed the Pope, known as the Guelphs, and those who backed the Holy Roman Emperor, the Ghibellines. This wasn't just a political disagreement. It was a holy war fought street by street, city by city. Neighboring towns aligned with opposite sides purely out of spite. Bologna was a sprawling, wealthy stronghold for the papacy. Modena was a tough, militarized frontier outpost, loyal to the emperor. They shared a border. They shared water rights. And they hated each other with an intensity that spanned generations. For decades, this border wasn't a line on a map. It was a kill zone. Bolognese raiders would ride into Modenese territory, burning crops and destroying irrigation dams. Modenese cavalry would retaliate, raiding outer farms, slaughtering livestock, and hanging local officials. By the summer of 1325, the violence had breached a breaking point. In July, Bolognese forces invaded Modena's farmland, putting thousands of acres to the torch. In August, a mob led by Bologna's chief magistrate spent 2 full weeks ravaging the Modenese countryside. Modena was bleeding, but their leader was not a man who turned the other cheek. His name was Passerino de Bonacolsi. He was the ruthless Ghibelline ruler of Modena. Pope John XXII hated Bonacolsi so deeply that he officially declared him a rebel against the Holy Church and granted religious indulgences, the same spiritual rewards given to crusaders, to anyone who could kill him or destroy his property. Bologna believed they had the Pope on their side, the money, and the numbers. They thought Modena was trapped. Then came the betrayal, September 1325. The strategic key to the entire region was the castle of Monteveglio, a powerful Bolognese fortress guarding the border. It was heavily fortified, fully stocked, and supposed to be impenetrable. It didn't fall to siege engines, it fell to greed. Disgruntled Bolognese guards inside the castle made a secret deal with Passerino Bonacolsi. In the dead of night, they unlocked the gates. Modenese forces slipped inside without firing a single arrow. The 2 head commanders of the garrison were dragged into the courtyard and summarily beheaded. By morning, the Ghibelline eagle flag was flying over Bologna's most vital defensive post. The news hit Bologna like an earthquake. Losing Monteveglio wasn't just a tactical disaster, it was an unbearable humiliation. The city council called for total mobilization. Every able-bodied man, noble knight, guild member, and mercenary was called to arms. This was no longer a border dispute, this was an existential crusade. By early November, Bologna had assembled an astonishing force, 30,000 foot soldiers and 2,000 heavy cavalry knights. 32,000 men marched out to crush Modena once and for all. Passerino Bonacolsi looked at his own muster rolls. Modena could only assemble 5,000 infantry and 2,000 cavalry. They were outnumbered nearly 5 to 1. Any sensible commander would have hunkered down behind city walls. But Bonacolsi knew something the Bolognese had forgotten. Numbers mean nothing if your army doesn't know how to fight. November 15th, 1325, 2:30 in the afternoon. The 2 armies met near the base of the hill at Zappolino. The Bolognese army was colossal, stretching across the fields in long, disorganized columns. They were confident. They were arrogant. They believed their sheer weight and manpower would crush the Modenese by sunset. Modena's army was tiny by comparison, but it was composed of hardened, battle-tested veterans, led by elite German and Italian mercenary cavalry. Bonacolsi saw the flaw in the Bolognese line instantly. Their massive numbers had created bottlenecking and confusion. The Bolognese infantry were stretched thin, and their vanguard was separated from their main body. He didn't wait for them to organize. Bonacolsi unleashed a concentrated, ferocious cavalry assault straight into the Bolognese flank. The impact was catastrophic. The front lines of the Bolognese infantry collapsed instantly under the weight of armored war horses. The rear columns, unable to see what was happening through the thick dust and dying daylight, panicked. What was supposed to be a crushing victory turned into a slaughter. The Bolognese army broke. Thousands of men dropped their shields, threw down their spears, and fled in terror toward the safety of Bologna's walls. In less than 2 hours, the battle was over. Over 2,000 men lay dead or wounded in the fields of Zappolino. And the Modenese were not done. The victorious Modenese army didn't just win the field, they pursued the fleeing Bolognese all the way back to the gates of their own city. Modena didn't have the heavy siege equipment needed to break down Bologna's massive city walls, but Bonacolsi didn't need to capture the city. He wanted to break their spirit. For 3 days, the Modenese army camped right outside Bologna's gates. They burned the estates of the Bolognese nobles outside the walls. They hosted a mock athletic festival right in front of the ramparts, mocking the terrified citizens watching from above. And then came the final, legendary gesture of contempt. Just outside the city gates at the public well of San Felice, Modenese soldiers paused. They unhooked the wooden bucket used by the citizens of Bologna to draw water. It held no monetary value. It was simple oak and iron. But taking it was the ultimate act of disrespect, a public declaration that Bologna couldn't even protect the well outside its own front door. When the Modenese army returned home in triumph, they carried the bucket with them. They hung it in the town cathedral as a holy trophy of victory over the papal forces. Centuries later, a 17th century Italian poet named Alessandro Tassoni wrote a famous satirical poem called La Secchia Rapita, the kidnapped bucket. The poem flipped the timeline, inventing the hilarious narrative that the war started because of the stolen bucket. The myth stuck, overwriting 700 years of complex geopolitical history. The War of the Bucket wasn't fought over a piece of wooden kitchenware. It was fought over power, pride, and papal politics. But 700 years later, the bucket still hangs in Modena's cathedral tower, a subtle wooden reminder of the day 7,000 men humiliated an army of 32,000.